this is the second video for this topic on Introduction to Philosophy. What is philosophy? This is How to Read Philosophy by Hugh Wilder. This is a adaptation of an article published by David Concepcion. That article is pretty interesting, but this is just a parsed down version, more useful to students rather than educators. So the first thing I want to note that is completely normal, okay, to have difficulty understanding philosophical text. Philosophy can be a very difficult subject. It's a rewarding subject, and given enough practice and enough time, all of you watching this video, in fact, anyone can understand philosophical text. But it's completely normal to start out confused and frustrated. It's also completely normal for certain subjects, because they're more interesting to you or because you have more familiarity with the background information, for those subjects to be easier for you to read philosophy on. So sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's less easy, sometimes it's very exciting so it doesn't feel like too much work, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to understand what an author's doing. It's completely normal, my point is, to have some difficulty. But like I said, if you stick with it, it'll become easier, right? Because that's another thing that Wilder says. It's an activity. And like any activity, if you practice, you get better at it. So, one thing I want to highlight here that Wilder says is very good. You should be looking for arguments, reasons, and conclusions, not plot, character development, or appeal to emotion, to help you understand and evaluate the views articulated in the text you're reading. Remember, philosophy is about asking questions, offering answers, and evaluating the reasons in support of that answer, as well as the answer. We also get to sometimes critique the questions, so that's pretty fun. So here are the basics, right? Interact with the material. Reading is not a passive activity. It is an activity. You should do it actively. This might be very useful. A good dictionary. This walking around and talking, right? He says, not out loud, your friends will worry. Nah, read stuff out loud. A lot of these texts that we're going to read were meant to be read out loud. In fact, it's not until this more contemporary era that we're in that people stopped reading out loud. So yeah, read out loud. Talk if you want to. Get in the shower and shadow box with yourself on these topics. It will help. This is important, right? If you can do nothing else with the text but state the conclusion and some reason the author has for that conclusion, you're doing a lot of good work already. So even if you're struggling with all the intricate steps and details, if you can do this, you're good. You're off to a good start. You're in a good place. And then you should be able to evaluate, right? You have your reasons. The author has their reasons. Maybe you agree, but maybe you disagree with something that they've said. This is completely acceptable. Evaluating doesn't mean just, oh, this is terrible, although it can mean that. But it means, like, have they proven their point? Is there some reason that somebody even who agrees with this author might say, whoa, hold on, you've done something wrong? That's what it means to evaluate. It's not just, is this a good piece of writing? That may be part of it, but they're saying something for a particular reason. Do you agree? Is this good? You get to do that in this class. So let's talk about the actual process of reading, right? So the first step is the pre-read, okay? And the pre-read, you're just going to look it over, right? So if you were pre-reading this particular text, you'd look it over. Okay, it's split up into some sections, what to expect, some basics. What is this? The 4-step reading process. Okay, so I know there's going to be 4 steps, so when I'm going through, I should look for 4 steps. This is a methodology that's really good for a particular thing. Okay, so I should figure out, what that thing is. That's what you're doing on a pre-read. You're trying to figure out what the text is actually about. And you're looking for footnotes as well. Bibliography, how are they using their resources? Do you need to read the footnotes, or are they just citations? Those sorts of things. That's the pre-read. This is an important part of it. Skim the first and last paragraphs. This is going to be particularly helpful on any contemporary articles that we read. For other authors, it might be a little bit difficult, but try to figure out the purpose and thesis when you're reading. And that's exactly what's going to go on in the fast read. You're just going to go through it quickly. You're not really reading to necessarily understand. You're looking for things that'll help you understand. So noting things you don't recognize, words, concepts you don't understand. Flagging the text with brief notation. So you're identifying arguments, conclusions, rebuttals, objections, things like that. This is a good one. Identify separate arguments for the thesis. And because sometimes you have arguments for the thesis and then you have arguments in support of arguments for the thesis. So being able to distinguish the two is very useful. But these are the checks, right? Have I identified the thesis, written it down? Do I know what the conclusion of the author's argument is? Have I marked down and places where the important steps toward the conclusion occur? All right, and step 3 is to read for understanding. And I'm going to show you guys how to practice this. Right, so don't worry if this is going quickly. This is a big one, indicator words, right? Conclusions typically begin with certain words. Therefore, thus, consequently, in conclusion, finally, things like that. And reasons or premises are usually because, since, as, due to. These are indicating how particular claims in the paper are hanging together. And the author is using these words to help you, the reader, follow along. So when you're doing this quicker read, find them. And also sometimes, this is really fun, authors will use the wrong connecting word. And that could be confusing. So noting that as well is also helpful. And this is a big one. Write a summary. When you're trying to discuss this stuff and you haven't read the paper, you haven't read the reading, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to do any of the work in this class in a timely manner. So being successful in this class, in this course, and being successful in doing the work and doing philosophy requires that you understand the argument. And so just quickly jotting down a summary of the writing, the work that you're reading as you understand it, will help you greatly, because when you go back to read for evaluation, where you say, okay, was this good or not? All right, I like this distinction that Wilder makes. Okay, when you're first reading, you're just trying to get your foot in the door, right? He says you're learning about the debate. All right, this is when you show up to practice on the first day and you got to learn all your teammates' names, you got to learn how the coach works, do I have the right equipment, that sort of stuff. And then the evaluation stage, that's game day, baby, has all this effort you put in actually given you the ability to enter the debate, to lay something down so that other people can pick it up. That's what read for evaluation is. And if you're not in a place where you can demonstrate some understanding of the text, even if it's just this is their conclusion and this is how I think they're going about arguing for it, you're not going to be able to do this evaluation very well. So, when you're reading, you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the author doing? What's the claim they're trying to argue for? How are they doing that? And then once you get all of that down, right, now we can turn and we can look at whether or not they've done that successfully or in a way that we're willing to accept.